Yes. Yeah. Switch off my camera. Hey everyone. I hope everyone is great. Yeah. So we'll wait. I think a couple of minutes. So let's other people join. Thanks. Okay. I think let's start. So today we'll be talking about GRE Quant. It's this is about mainly understanding what exactly GRE is and how do we handle the GRE Quant section, some tips and tricks, and then maybe about the time management skills. How do we manage time? So what do we have to do in order to manage time, right? So our agenda for today is we'll know something about our company called UniHawk, and then we'll see the test, GRE test pattern and the types of questions that we have in the GRE test, and the tips and the time management skills. Okay, so we as a company called UniHawk, so we provide training for GRE, GMAT, SAT, PSAT, ACT, all the test prep all the test prep courses. And Mr. Varun Jain, he is the founder of the company, and he has more than 2 decades of experience in guiding students toward their destination countries and their desired scores and desired universities, right? So we have taught more than 12,000 plus students, and then we have sent students to more than 800 plus universities, and more than 75 plus nationality students have applied. And as a team, we have more than 200 plus years of experience, right? So as for GRE, this is the GRE test pattern. Okay, so the first section of GRE would be AWA, which is called Analytical Writing Assessment, in which we'll have 2 questions. Okay, so one is issue based, another one is argument based, and each question is we can call it as an essay. Actually, each essay will be for 30 minutes. Okay, and the score is for 0 to 6. Okay, the score is of 0 to 6. And the score interval is 0.5. So score interval is 0.5. So what do you mean by the score interval? That means, let's say, for example, for the first time when you take the test, you have got a score of 4. Next time when you take the score, you might get 4.5, and then next 5, and then 5.5, something like that. But you will never get a score of 4.25, 4.30, nothing like that. Okay, so it's an increment called 0.5. Okay, and quantitative reason is one of the sections that we'll be talking about today. Okay, and in this each section will have 20 questions, and it's for 35 minutes, and the score is minimum 130 to maximum 170. Okay, and verbal section also has 20 questions per section, and 30 minutes per section, and this is also from 130 to 170. Okay, so if you observe here, the minimum score, the combined score will be 260 to 340. That means if you get a score of 260, that means you have got a score of 0. Okay, right. So the on an average, most of the students get a score of 300. Okay, this is a decent score. This is a decent score. Okay, and anything about 320 plus would be a good score. Okay, right. And then we have an experimental section. So what is this experimental section? This is called an unscored section, and we don't know what experimental section could be. That means it could be either a quantitative reasoning or a verbal reasoning. That means the time allotted varies based on the section. And in the same way, research section is also similar to experimental section. Now, what is the difference between experimental section and research section? In experimental section, we will not be able to identify which one is an experimental section actually. Okay, but for a research section, we will be definitely able to identify. How? If you get a research section, the last section of your exam will be a research section, and it will be mentioned clearly on the top of the screen that it is a research section. So it is your choice if you want to take that section or if you want to skip that section. Okay, and experimental section, as I mentioned, you will not be able to identify, right? So that means you have to consider every section as an experimental section. For example, the first section, let's say it's quant, and the next section could be verbal, and then quant, and then verbal, and then quant. So since you have 3 quant sections, that means one of the section is an experimental. But which one? Either the first one, or the second one, or the third one, we never know. Okay. Let's say maybe I could get even like this: verbal, verbal, quant, verbal, quant. So in this also, we have 3 verbal sections, but we never know which one is an experimental section. Since you have only 2 quant sections, that means these are the 2 actual sections. You did not get an experimental section in the quant section. So you will definitely get 2 quant sections and 2 verbal sections for sure. And whichever the third section that we get, that will be an experimental section. And that experimental section is not scored. That means if all the 20 questions of verbal or the quant are correct, so that is not going to help you with the score. Okay, right. Now, let's see the types of questions that we have in quantitative reasoning. There are 4 types of questions. Okay, so the first one is problem solving with one answer. And next, problem solving with one or more answers. And next, quantitative comparison, numerical. So problem solving with one answer, how do we identify if you have answer choices in vowel shape? That means it is problem solving with one answer. You have exactly one answer. Now, what about problem solving with one or more answers? Whenever you have check boxes, that means you might have more than one answer. If you observe, I have said might have. It is not necessary. You will always have more than one answer. Okay. Next, quantitative comparison. So quantitative comparison is a kind of a new question type, but it's not exactly new. Okay. So here there are 4 standard options. The options are not going to change. So what are the 4 options? First option says quantity A is greater than quantity B. Second option says quantity A is less than quantity B. Third option says both the quantities are equal. Fourth option says cannot be determined. So these are the 4 standard options, right? So first option is quantity A is greater than quantity B. Second option is quantity A is less than quantity B. Third option is both the quantities are equal. And fourth option is cannot be determined. And numerical entry. So here we will not have any options. Here we will need to type in the answer, right? So that is why we call it as numerical entry. We need to enter the answer. Okay. So here we need to be a bit careful because we don't have options. If we have options, then we could do something with or we could use the options and then we could try to select one of the options. But here we have no clue what we have to type in. So we need to read the question carefully, slowly but carefully, and then type in the answer. Okay, right. Now, so let's see some quick tips how to make our quant part strong, right? So these tips will help you to make your quant part strong, right? So what are they? The first one is strong basics. Your basics have to be very, very strong, right? So some quant parts are really easy. For example, exponents and roots. There are more formulas, but it's one of the easy concepts where we can score more. And another one is percentages. It's again an easy concept. Ratios and proportions. Again, it's an easy concept. Okay. So there are some concepts which are easy to understand, but we have to make sure that we are strong in that, at least those basics. Now, let's say, for example, if you're strong in the basics, then we can get a score from 130 to 150 out of 170. So if you're good at basics, you can get a score of 130 to 150. And then next one is strong conceptual understanding. If you have a very good understanding of the concept, then you can get a score between 150 to 160. Now, but what we have to do in order to get a score of 170? So knowing the concept will not help you, but along with the concept, you need to know the strategies, the right way to approach the questions. Okay, so that is what know the strategies. you need to know the strategies. If you know the strategies, if you know the concept, and if your basics are clear, then you will get a score between 160 to 170. Right? Next. So what is this pick numbers? So we have to pick numbers whenever there are variables in the answers. So because the reason is handling variables is really challenging, but handling numbers is really easy. Okay. Next, identify the difficulty level, right? We need to know the difficulty level of the particular question and alternate ways of solving. So there are, of course, for many of the questions, we have different ways to solve. At least we need to know 2 ways to solve these questions. Okay. Now let's look at the first question. Could you please solve this question? I'll give you 2 minutes time. Once you are done with this, please type in your answer in the Q&A section. Okay, I hope you finished. Could you please type in your answer so that I understand? Fine. Right. So for this, if you observe, what we need is the strong basics. This is not a hard question. This is an easy question where we can score, right? So for these kind of questions, we cannot make mistakes because these are the questions which can help us to score. Okay. Now, how do we handle this question? The basic formula that we need to remember for this would be A upon B whole to the power minus 1 is, in fact, let's say n is B upon A whole to the power n. So whenever we have a negative sign in the power, to remove that negative sign, we have to reciprocal the fraction. Okay. In the same way, if I apply the same strategy here, same formula here, so 1 upon 4 will actually become 4 to the power 1. 4 upon 1, which is nothing but 4, 4 to the power 1, plus 1 upon 4 whole to the power minus 2. Again, to remove the negative sign, what we have to do, we have to reciprocal, which is 4 to the power 2. plus 1 upon 4 whole to the power minus 3 becomes 4 to the power 3 whole to the power whole divided by 4. So what is 4 to the power 1? 4 to the power 1 is 4. 4 square is 16. 4 cube is 64 whole divided by 4. So this is 4 plus 16 is 20. 20 plus 64 is 84. So 84 upon 4 is nothing but 21. So quantity A is 21 and quantity B is 21. So both the quantities are equal. So we can say quantity A is equals to quantity B. So for this, answer would be option C. Okay. So as I mentioned again, these are the easy questions. For easy questions, you need to know basics. For easy questions, they mainly test on basics, not on the core concept. Okay, right. Let's look at the next question. Please try this question. I'll give you 2 minutes time. Right. I hope everyone is done with this. Let's see how do we handle this question. Right. Before that, so if you observe, we need strong conceptual understanding for such kind of questions. Right. So let's see what exactly the concept that they are testing is. Here we have A upon B is equals to 73.8. Right. And then he said when A divided by 3, the remainder is 8. But the quotient is 3.80. Now, let's see what exactly he means. Let's say, for example, if we take 33 divided by 4, when you do divide 33 by 4, the remainder is going to be 1. But if you divide this completely, what would be the quotient? Quotient would be 8.25. Right? So if you get a quotient of 8.25, that means you're going to get a remainder 0. Right? Now, because he said remainder is 1, that means this is not completely divisible. Now, what do you mean by that? Let me show you. So 33 divided by 4, right? And how much do we get? It is 8.25. I'm going to write this as 33 equals to 33 upon 4 is equals to 8 plus 0.25. Now I'm going to cross multiply this 4 to the right hand side. So this is 33 equals to 8 times 4 plus 0.25 times 4, right? Now, if we recollect this, the concept here, what is this 33? 33 is the dividend. And 4 is the divisor. So we have a formula, that is dividend is equals to divisor multiplied by the quotient plus the remainder, right? Dividend is equals to divisor multiplied by the quotient plus the remainder, right? So if you observe, this is the divisor, 4 is the divisor, and 8 is the quotient, and this part is the remainder, right? If you observe, what is the remainder? 4 times 0.25, which is nothing but 1. This is the remainder, correct? Now, in the same way, we are going to use the same technique here. Now, that is A upon B equals to 73.80, which is A upon B equals to 73 plus 0.8, right? If I cross multiply, so A equals to 73B plus 0.8B. Now, if you observe, this is nothing but the remainder. And what is the remainder given? Remainder is nothing but 8. So this is 0.8B is actually 8. So for this, if you divide by 0.8 on both the sides, B is equals to 8 upon 0.8, which is nothing but 10, right? So here, the key point here is we need to memorize the formula dividend equals to divisor multiply the quotient plus remainder. So this is nothing much, this is very basic, okay, but we need to know the core concept of how this formula works, right? I hope everyone understood this. Let's move to the next question. Right. Please try this question. I'll give you 2 minutes time. Right. I think let's solve together. There are 65 workers at a construction site. Among them, 3,900 is distributed to each male worker gets $80 and each female gets $30, right? So he's saying there are totally 65 workers, male and female together. So if I have to create an equation, this would be, sorry, just a minute. Right. So for this, we need to know the right strategy, right? So let's see. For if in case if I have to create an equation which is male plus female, number of male plus number of females are 65, and the total amount that they have distributed between male and female is 3,900, right? So that means each male members get $80, which is 80M plus 30F equals to 3,900. Now, what is quantity A? The number of male workers, and quantity B is number of female workers. That means I need to know the value of F. I need to know the value of M. If in case if I have to do using the elimination method or the substitution method, this is going to take time. So we need to know the right strategy, right? So let's find out what is average wages which is getting per person, be it a male or a female. How do we do that? The total amount that we have, just 3,900 divided by the total employees that we have, which is 65. Sorry, this is 65, right? So 3,900 divided by 65 gives you how much? 60, right? So that means per person, they are getting $60. Okay. Now let's see. The strategy would be, these will be the number of male, M is for the male and F is for female. And this is the amount that each male person is getting, $80 per male and $30 per female, right? And this is 60. That is nothing but the average wage per person, be it male or female. Okay. Now what we have to do is, here we have to do cross subtraction. So which is, and then we do cross subtraction, we have to take the positive difference. So the difference between 60 and 30 is going to be 30, and 80 and 60 is going to be 20. So this is male is 30 parts and female is 20 parts. If you simplify further, this is 3:2, right? That means males are more than females, right? So that means we can say quantity A is greater than quantity B. Okay. So we need to know when to use which strategy. Okay. So does this strategy really work every time? It depends. Okay. So it depends upon the question that we have, depends upon the information that we have, right? Cool. Let's move to the next question. Right. Let's solve together. If A, B, and C are three positive integers, such that if A is the factor of B and B is the factor of C, then which of the following statement must be true, right? So for this, what we need to do is we need to pick numbers, because as I said earlier, when there are variables, it is too confusing, right? So, but when there are numbers, it's straightforward. We know what is 2.5 means and what is 3 means, but what is A, what is B, what is C, we don't know, right? So let's take some value for A, B, and C based on the conditions that we have. So A, he said A is a factor of B. Let's say A is 2, then B has to be maybe 4 or 6 something. Let's make it simple. Let's say B is 4. 2 is a factor of 4. And he said B is a factor of C. That means 4 is a factor of some number, which is, let's say, 8. So 4 is a factor of 8. Now, what are we going to do? We are going to substitute these values in the options. Okay. Now let's see. So if B is a factor of AC, so B, which is 4, and A times C is 2 times 8 is 16. So 4 is a factor of 16, which makes sense, right? And this is true as of now. And A is a factor of C, 2 is a factor of 8. This also makes sense. And C is a factor of A. C, 8 is a factor of 2. No, it does not make sense, because this 8 cannot be a factor because 8 is a bigger number than 2, right? So this is definitely wrong. And A is a factor of BC. That means 2 is a factor of 4 times 8, which is what do you call it? 32. So which also makes sense. So that means what could be the answer? A, B, and D. Now, let's say, for example, if you're not if you're not confident, then you try taking a different pair of numbers. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, if I say A is maybe 5, then this is maybe 15, and maybe this is 60, right? You pick these values, substitute in that, again, A, B, and D will be satisfying. So that means we can say first, second, and fourth option are always true. Now, whenever we have such kind of questions, what we have to do is we have to substitute values for the variables, right? I hope you understood, right? Let's move to the next question quickly. Right. Now, let's look at this question. So for this question, what do we need? Identify the difficulty level. Now, for every question, you need to identify the difficulty level. If you're not able to identify, then that's going to be really tricky for you. Because if you know the difficulty level, then you will understand whether you have to skip the question or whether you have to solve the question. Okay, when I say skip, it doesn't mean that you are skipping it completely. We have an option called flag. You'll flag the question and you'll mark one of the 5 options, and then we'll move to the next question. Because if you, let's say, for example, you are running out of time and then you're not able to come back to solve this question, then if you don't mark anything, then that gives you, although we can't say we have a negative marking, but you will get less marks, less points, right? But let's say, for example, you have marked an option and let's say it's right? Then you'll get a point, right? So it is better we know the difficulty level in order to either to know to skip the question or you have to solve the question. If the question is easy, you have to solve it in the first attempt. If the question is hard, then you have to flag the question, mark one of the 5 options, and move to the next questions. Solve all the easy and medium level questions in the first attempt, and then once finishing all of them, then come back to the difficult level questions where you will have more time to spend on the difficult level questions. Okay, right? Let's quickly solve this question, right? So the length of the largest side of a right triangle is given as 20 units. Which of the following could be the area of the triangle? Right. So let's say, since he said it's a right angle triangle, let me draw a right angle triangle. So let me name this. This is A, B, and C. And he said the largest side has 20 units. So this is 20. Okay. Now, since he is asking us to find out the area of the triangle, what is area of a triangle? Area is half times base times height. But do we know the base and height? As of now, we don't know the base and height, right? So that means this question is a difficult level. What we have to do, if we spend more time on this, we will run out of time. So what we have to do, we have to flag this question, mark this, and then move to the next question. But now we will solve this quickly. So although this question looks tricky, but this is not actually difficult, right? So the reason I said is we need to remember Pythagorean triplets. So now what are the Pythagorean triplets? The first thing is 3, 4, 5, right? Next, based on this, we can derive 6, 8, 10. And based on this, we can derive even 12, 16, and 20. Multiply this by 2, you will get this pair. And multiply this times 2, you will get this pair, right? So you don't have to remember many pairs. If you remember one pair and then keep multiplying all the numbers by the same constant, then you will get a new pair. Now, let's see. Now, here we have 20. That means the base is 12 or height is 16, or the base is 16 and height is 12. Now, since it is multiplication, it doesn't make a big difference. So let's say half times base is 12. I'm considering base is 12 and height is 16. So 2, how many times 2? 8 times. So 12 times 8 is 96. So it has to be 96 square units. So answer is option D, right? So I hope you understand. So in this, what did we understand? We need to remember the Pythagorean triplets, right? Right. So let's move to the next question. So if A and B are two solutions of the equations, x square minus 5x plus 4 equals to 0, what is the value of 1 upon 1 plus A divided by A multiplied by 1 plus B divided by B? Now, we know every question, not every question I can say, but most of the questions have at least two methods, right? So everyone knows at least one method, but it is better we know at least two methods to solve the question, right? Now, we know we can factorize it. The question is simple. We can factorize it. We can do it. But what in case if the numbers are big, where we are not able to factorize it, right? So what we have to do, we need to know the alternative method, right? So let's quickly see the alternative method. If you multiply this, this is, I'm multiplying the numerator, which is 1 plus, this is going to be A plus B and then AB, right? I wrote the direct equation, the direct expression, and then if you multiply the denominator, that's going to be AB, right? So now, what are A and B? A and B are the two solutions. They are also called as roots. So A plus B is nothing but the sum of the roots. What is sum of the roots formula? Sum of the roots is minus B upon A, which is minus of minus 5, which is 5, which is 1. Right, let me write. So A plus B is nothing but sum of the roots, which is minus B upon A, which is minus of minus 5 upon 1, which is 5. And AB is nothing but the product of the roots. Product of the roots is C upon A. C is 4. 4 upon 1 is nothing but 4. So A plus B is nothing but 5. And AB is nothing but 4. Substitute in this. This is nothing but 10 over 4. Either you can write 10 over 4 or you can write the simplified form, which is nothing but 5 over 2. Here, if you observe, there are two boxes, one in the numerator and one in the denominator. So you can write 5 in the numerator and 2 in the denominator, right? Cool. So, yeah. This, as I told you, we need alternate ways to solve this, right? Cool. So let's look at the time management, right? So there are 5 tips for time management, which is first thing, you need to know that you have to skip the question. So for which question you have to skip and for which question you have to solve, right? Easy questions and medium questions, you definitely have to solve it. For harder level question, you have to skip them, right? When I say skip, again, you need to flag and then you need to mark one of the options and then you need to move to the next question. Next one is educated guessing, right? So when we say educated guessing, so just don't randomly, because you don't know how to solve it, it doesn't mean that you'll not be able to guess, take a good guess, right? So do some basic mathematics or do some basic reasoning skills on the question, and then I think I'm sure you'll be able to come up with a good educated guessing. For example, so if you look at this question, right, so here we need to skip these kind of questions. The reason is there are too many inequalities, right? When we have one inequality, that it's easy, but when we have two inequalities, it's really tricky. But when we have 3 inequalities like this is going to take little time, right? So that means we need to skip such kind of questions, right? And let's look at the next one. Next one is educated guessing, right? So here we need to, if you look at the question itself is huge, right? And let's say, for example, if you have, for such kind of questions, you have last 1 minute. By the time you read the question, understand the question and solve it, this is going to take a lot of time. So here, for such kind of questions, what you have to do is you need to do educated guessing, right? Next, process of elimination, right? So as I told you, for most of the questions, you have 2 different ways to solve such kind of questions, right? So we'll try reading the question, but for this question, if you really need to try, if you really need to solve, that means you will have to literally draw a graph, plot these points and see which one is within the area shaded area, which is within the area, the boundary lines, or which is outside or the boundary lines, and which is inside the inside the boundary lines, right? So this is going to take a lot of time. So for this, what we have to do is we have to use the process of elimination, right, in order to save some time. Next, we have something called approximations, right? So what we have to do is, for such kind of questions, if you observe, there are too many square roots, too many fractions, right? So by the time we solve this, and these are not even perfect square roots also, right? So square root of 2, square root of 4 or 5 is a square root of 2. Maybe we can try remembering it, but square root of 5, that looks a little weird. And square root of 80, I think it's really impossible to remember what is square root of 80, right? So even if I remember this, multiplying 4 times of this and 4 times of this, that's really difficult. So for such kind of questions, whenever there are too many square roots involved, I would say, try using approximations, and you can definitely get the right answer. And now, whenever you use approximations, don't use approximations for all the questions. The reason is you need to look at the options. If the numbers are close enough, then it's really challenging to use approximations. But if the numbers are far apart, you can definitely use approximations. It can definitely help you, right? Next one is data interpretation questions, right? So data interpretation questions, you have to give them the last preference, because these are time consuming questions. Okay. So these are time consuming questions. The reason I told you these are time consuming questions is there are multiple graphs or multiple tables which are involved in this. In this, if you observe, here you have a table and you have a graph. Sometimes you will get a question only based on the table. Sometimes you get a question only based on the graph. So sometimes you might get together, right? So let's say, for example, if this question is need information based on both, then what we have to do, we will take a lot of time to understand what is the graph talking about, what is the table talking about, and then we solve it. These questions will take a lot of time. So do not solve the data interpretation questions in the first attempt, right? So solve all the other questions, easy level questions and medium questions, and then move on to the, there are 3 questions of data interpretation questions. You can mark those 3 data interpretation questions, and then you can come back to those 3 DI questions, right? Next. So these are the things that we need to take care while we do the time management, right? So you have any questions regarding the quant section part, the time management, or the tips and tricks? You can put your question on the Q&A section. Yes, you are allowed to use the calculator, but you're not supposed to carry the calculator, right? So you have an on-screen calculator. So it's a very basic calculator where you have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and a square root, nothing else. So you can definitely use a calculator. Yes. Any other questions that you have for me? Right. Looks like no one has any questions. So thank you so much. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube to get more information and more webinars, right? So you will get a lot of information, what you need and what you're looking for GRE. Thank you so much, and see you in the next webinar.